The restaurant shimmered with golden chandeliers and clinking silverware, a world far removed from the dusty streets outside. Waiters in crisp uniforms floated between tables, serving gourmet dishes most people could never afford. Among the crowd of finely dressed patrons, no one noticed the small figure who quietly slipped in through the side door. Lila, a thin girl with tangled hair and worn clothes, kept her head low as she weaved her way through the tables. Her stomach growled, but she was used to that now. What she wasn't used to was seeing a child, alone, silent, in the middle of all this luxury. He sat beside a tall, stern man with cold eyes and a sharp black suit. The man, Victor Langdon, was a name Lila had overheard many times from newspapers discarded in trash bins. CEO of something powerful, rich, untouchable. But it was the boy beside him that caught her attention. The boy looked about her age. Maybe younger. Pale, still, almost ghost-like. His eyes didn't move. His hands sat on the table like forgotten toys. No food touched. No words spoken. Drawn by something she couldn't explain, Lila approached. The restaurant's noise seemed to dim. A security guard noticed her and took a step forward, but Victor raised a hand, curious rather than alarmed. Lila stood next to the boy, her voice small but clear. If I make your son talk, will you give me your leftovers? Gasps and laughter rippled through the tables. Someone chuckled under their breath, what a joke. Victor narrowed his eyes, more amused than angry. He leaned back in his chair, looking at the girl as if inspecting a strange street performance. You think you can make him talk? He asked. Lila nodded, her eyes on the boy. Victor shrugged. Go ahead. Entertain me. And with that, the girl knelt beside the silent boy, and the entire restaurant waited for the impossible. Lila gently rested her hands on the edge of the boy's chair, careful not to startle him. His expression remained blank, as though her presence didn't register. But she wasn't discouraged. She had seen this kind of silence before, in the mirror, after her mother passed. She leaned in slowly, her voice soft and steady. Hi, she whispered. I'm Lila. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. But I'd really like to hear your voice, just once. The boy didn't move. His hands, resting on his lap, stayed motionless. The restaurant had gone unnaturally quiet. Even the clinking of forks had stopped. All eyes were on the strange girl and the billionaire's mute son. Victor scoffed quietly, sipping his wine. This is pathetic, he muttered under his breath. 10 therapists and a priest couldn't get a word out of him. But sure, let the beggar try. Lila ignored the laughter that followed. Her attention was fully on the boy. She pulled something from her pocket, a tiny wooden bird, carved roughly, its wings spread mid-flight. I made this, she said, setting it gently on the table in front of him. He's not perfect. But he never gives up. I think he gets lonely too. Still. No reaction. Then, softly, she hummed. It was a lullaby, one her mother used to sing, and later, one she had taught herself to hum in the shelter when she couldn't sleep. As the melody floated between them, something changed. The boy blinked. It was the smallest motion. Barely noticeable. But Lila saw it. Her voice stayed calm as she reached a hand forward. It's okay. No one here can hurt you. He slowly turned his head toward her. His lips parted ever so slightly. Victor leaned forward now, his wine glass frozen in midair. Lila whispered, you don't have to say anything, just nod if you hear me. A second passed, then the boy nodded. The entire restaurant seemed to gasp. Even the waiters froze. Victor set down his glass with a faint clink and stood up, slowly, eyes wide with disbelief. The CEO's world, his perfectly controlled, measured world, had just cracked. And a poor girl with tangled hair and calloused hands had done what no doctor, specialist, or expert ever could. Victor stared at his son as if seeing him for the first time. The nod, simple, tiny, yet monumental, shook him in a way no business deal ever had. His $1,000,000 smile faded, replaced by something unsure, something raw. The room was still silent, the crowd too stunned to react. Victor opened his mouth. Then closed it again, struggling to gather words. He turned to Lila, confusion and suspicion clouding his eyes. What did you do? He asked, his voice quieter than anyone expected. Lila looked up at him calmly. I didn't do anything. To him, she replied. I just listened. And didn't ask him to be someone he's not. Victor's jaw tightened. He didn't like not having control, especially over his own son. He walked around the table and knelt beside the boy, who was now holding the wooden bird in his hands. It looked clumsy in his grasp, but he was focused on it, as if it were the most important thing in the world. Leo, Victor said cautiously, do you know her? The boy looked at his father, then turned to Lila and nodded again. Victor's chest tightened. He looked back at Lila. Who are you? I'm nobody, she said simply. But I've been alone. And I know what it's like when no one hears you. Sometimes silence isn't broken by force, but by kindness. Victor stood, clearly rattled. His face twitched with the need to reassert control. Fine, he muttered. You made him nod. Big deal. He still hasn't said a word. You said he'd talk, remember? That was the deal. Lila met his gaze without flinching. He will. If you stop treating him like a broken thing you're trying to fix. Victor stepped closer, towering over her. Are you trying to teach me how to parent? Lila didn't step back. No. I'm trying to remind you he's still a child. Not a project. And he's scared of you. That landed like a slap. Victor's mouth opened to protest, but he couldn't. Deep down, he knew she was right. And just then, a tiny voice broke through the tension, soft and trembling. Lila. Everyone froze. The boy had spoken. He was staring at her, eyes wide, voice shaky, but clear. He had said her name. Victor staggered back a step, as if physically struck. Lila slowly knelt beside Leo. I'm here, she said gently. Leo reached for her hand, small fingers curling around hers. Victor's lip quivered, eyes wet, though he tried to hide it. And the entire restaurant, once skeptical and dismissive, now watched in absolute silence, humbled by a moment that money could never buy. Victor sat alone at his penthouse window. That night, the city glittering far below him. But the lights didn't impress him. They never did, not really. His mind kept replaying the moment, his son, saying her name. Lila. Not Dad. Not, hi. Just, Lila but it wasn't just the word. It was the warmth in Leo's eyes when he said it, the way he looked at her, like someone safe, someone who saw him. A look Victor had never been able to earn from his own child. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. What had that girl done that he hadn't tried? Expensive therapists. Private tutors. Specialists flown in from across the world. And yet all it took was a girl in worn-out clothes with no credentials and the nerve to ask for his leftovers. He couldn't sleep. Something in him itched, something he hadn't felt in years, maybe ever. Guilt. Not just over his son, but over how he had treated Lila. How he had laughed at her hunger, dismissed her offer like a joke. He wasn't sure what stung more, that she'd been right, or that he'd been so wrong. The next morning, he didn't go to the office. Instead, he drove himself, no driver, no assistant, to the food shelter downtown. The one he'd passed 1,000 times but never once entered. And there she was. Lila was helping unpack crates of donated goods, her sleeves rolled up, a smudge of flour on her cheek. Her hair tied back messily. She looked like she belonged here, and yet, somehow, like she deserved so much more. She looked up, surprised to see him. You're lost, she said flatly. Victor swallowed hard. I might be, he said. But I think you found something that I didn't know I was missing. She paused, then slowly stood upright. This isn't your world. People don't come here with contracts or cameras. They come because they have to. I know, he said. That's why I'm here. There was a silence between them. Then he added, Leo hasn't stopped saying your name. Not once. He even smiled this morning. Lila's eyes softened, but her face stayed firm. He needs someone who listens. Not someone who orders results. Victor nodded. I want to listen, he said. Teach me. Lila blinked, unsure for the first time. Why? What do you get out of this? He exhaled. Maybe, for once, I don't get something. Maybe I give something instead. Time. Presence. Effort. Lila looked at him quietly. Then nodded. And for the first time in years, Victor felt like maybe, just maybe, he could be a real father. Not the CEO of his son's life. Just Dad. Victor's office was unusually quiet as he stared at the photograph on his desk, a candid shot of Leo smiling while holding a paper bird Lila had helped him make. It had only been a week, but his son had transformed. The boy who once hid behind silence now giggled when Lila read to him, mimicked words she whispered, and clung to her hand like it was the only anchor he'd ever trusted. Victor should have been happy. Relieved, even. But instead, something unsettled him. He wasn't part of that transformation. Every time Leo looked up at him, there was a wall, invisible, unspoken, but solid. And every time Lila entered the room, Leo's eyes lit up in a way they never had for his own father. It was a truth Victor didn't want to admit, the boy loved her. Not just liked, loved. As if she'd filled the space Victor had left empty. For too long. One evening, after dinner, Leo fell asleep on the couch with Lila gently stroking his hair. Victor watched from across the room, something cracking open inside him. He cleared his throat. "Can we talk?" Lila nodded and followed him into the hallway. "I need to ask you something," he said, his tone quieter than usual. Do you think he sees you as his mother?" She hesitated, then answered honestly, "I don't know. Maybe. Kids don't have labels for love. They just feel it." Victor looked down. "I wasn't ready to be a dad. I thought money would fill in the gaps. Ductos? I bought everything except what he actually needed, me." Lila's voice softened. "It's not too late." He looked at her, eyes brimming with emotion. "He said something last night. I was tucking him in, and he whispered, 'Lila makes me feel safe.'" She looked away, swallowing a lump in her throat. Victor continued, "And then he asked if you were going to stay forever." The hallway went quiet. Victor finally spoke again. "I don't want to just be grateful you helped my son. I want to give you more, if you want it." Lila frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "I'm asking if you'd consider staying. Not as a guest. As family." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't speak. She looked back through the open door at the boy asleep on the couch, his small hand still curled like it expected hers to return. And for the first time in years, Victor didn't feel like the CEO of anything. He was just a father, begging the one person who brought light into his son's life not to walk away. Lila nodded slowly. And in that silent nod, everything changed. Days passed, and the mansion, once cold and echoing with wealth, began to feel like a home. Lila's presence had become more than comforting, it was essential. She wasn't just a girl who made Leo talk. She was the girl who got him to laugh uncontrollably while making pancakes in the morning, who turned corners of the marble floors into racetracks for toy cars, who knew the exact tone to hum when Leo had nightmares and refused to sleep. Victor observed quietly at first, unsure of how to insert himself into this new rhythm. He would stand by the doorway, coffee in hand, watching Leo cling to Lila's arm during cartoons or insist she be the one to read The Little Prince every night. One afternoon, Lila was helping Leo build a cardboard spaceship in the living room. There were scissors, glue, and glitter scattered across a Persian rug that had probably cost more than her childhood home. She didn't care, and neither did Leo. He was laughing so hard he hiccuped, pointing at the crooked control panel. They had drawn. Victor stepped in, rolled up his sleeves, and said awkwardly, "Need a co-pilot?" Leo looked at him, paused, and then patted the floor. It was a small gesture. But for Victor, it was everything. They spent the next hour huddled together, CEO, poor girl, and the once silent boy, decorating a box that could never fly, but somehow carried them all higher than anything else could. Later that night, after Leo had fallen asleep, cardboard stars still stuck in his hair, Victor and Lila sat on the steps outside under a sky full of real ones. He broke the silence. "I used to think success was about power, profit, control. Then I met a girl who bargained for food in exchange for kindness, and gave me everything I never knew I was missing." Lila smiled softly. "I used to think I was invisible. But Leo saw me. And so did you." They sat there for a long time, not needing anything else. Inside, Leo stirred and murmured a single word in his sleep. Family. Weeks passed, and Lila had become a radiant presence in the once quiet mansion. The staff began to smile more. Laughter echoed through the halls, and Leo's voice, once a rare treasure, was now part of the daily rhythm. He told stories at breakfast, asked questions during walks, and sang softly during bedtime routines. Victor, once consumed by deals and deadlines, found himself scheduling fewer meetings and spending more afternoons lying on the floor building Lego castles with his son. And always, Lila was there, guiding gently, smiling warmly, anchoring them both. One evening, Victor hosted a formal charity gala at the estate. It was meant to impress investors and dignitaries, but all he could think about was whether Lila would come downstairs in the dress he'd left for her, deep blue satin, simple and elegant. When she finally descended the staircase, Leo was the first to gasp. "You look like a queen," he whispered, wide-eyed. Victor could only nod in agreement, struck speechless. The guests murmured, unsure who this graceful woman was by his side. Later in the night, a reporter asked Victor, "Mr. Gray, everyone's wondering, who is she?" He looked across the room at Lila, who was laughing as Leo twirled her beneath the crystal chandelier. "She's the reason I remember how to breathe," he replied softly. "She's the miracle we didn't know we needed." The reporter smiled politely, not quite understanding. But Victor didn't care. Because in that moment, watching his son dance, watching Lila smile, money, legacy, status, none of it compared to the family he'd found, completely by accident, all because a poor girl once asked for leftovers and gave them a future instead. Asterisk.